Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And today you're joining us for our recap and discussion of the final book in the Inheritance cycle, Inheritance by Christopher Paolini. I felt like this was a much more focused book. There were a lot of really cool things that happened in this, and it just didn't feel quite as long to me, personally, as Brissinger did. I liked a lot of the developments here. But yeah, we should definitely talk about how everything kind of wrapped up here.
Yeah, it was nice that things happened in this book. And I really liked it, just like you said, until the end. And then there are a few decisions that Christopher Paolini made that I was like, I wouldn't have turned left, you turned right, but that's fine. All in all, a good conclusion to a fun story.
Yeah, I had fun with this one. I mean, like, the Siege of Drasleona was cool. Eragon going to, like, the home, like, the forgotten ruins of the writers. It was cool. I mean, I feel like zooming out, looking at everything kind of makes sense. And then you kind of like zoom in a little bit and it's like, well, that was kind of an odd choice there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that didn't really go anywhere like I thought it was going to. And I don't know. Then you kind of like look at individual characters and it's like, oh, yeah, that was a nice place to end up. But then like their connection to the other characters is like also kind of weird.
It didn't end as unified as I wanted, which we'll get into. But yeah, it ended, but it kind of fizzled as opposed to like pow.
Yeah, the ending was really long. Like the climax with Galbatorix happened, and I was like, oh, okay. And then the rest of it was just. I mean, you got to wrap everything up, though, right?
Right. Like, but it was very like DJ Khaled, and another one. Like, okay.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like the end of Return of the King, where it was just like, oh yeah, I guess we got to wrap this one up too, huh?
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. Like you get a dragon, and they get dragons, and everybody.
You get captured, and you get captured, and you.
I feel like it's the strongest one. The pacing is the best in this one. Even in my opinion, better than Eragon. One cool thing after another kept happening, which is something that I look for in a fantasy book. It's just that some of those cool things that are happening, you kind of get to the end of it and you're like, well, I mean, I guess I was all right, but like, why did that happen exactly? You know?
Yeah, and like some decisions, people seem to be like forced into like duty, but it was like, but there's also a third option here. Like, it's not this or that. You can have your cake and eat it too, but I guess don't.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny. I've had like some various complaints about this series, and there's been a lot of high points too. And as I got to the end, like the last page, I was definitely like, I'm going to miss Saphira and Auric, and I'm going to miss, probably not Eragon, but I'm going to miss Roran and Nasuada. Probably not going to miss Eric. But though Eragon's character, I felt like, was the most rounded out and fleshed out. And I felt like Eragon kind of like became a little bit more interesting in this book, which was nice.
He did become a little bit more interesting in this book for sure. But yeah, I agree. It's like I grew up with Eragon. I was like very similar to the same age as him when I read them originally. And now my friendship is only deepened by this second go through. So there was a little bit of sadness. I was like, oh, all right. The leathery wings filled the sky as they fade into the distance, and my heart was heavy.
Yeah, they're like on this boat and just going into the dark land. And I was like, well, what's in the dark land, though? I want to see.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, some cool stuff here, but some stuff we definitely need to dig into, but we'll do that after the recap.
All right, let's do it. Inheritance begins during the siege of Bellatona. In the midst of the battle, Saphira is nearly killed by the Duach der Tniernen, a spear from Dufirn Skulblaka created to fight dragons. Eragon and Arya find Lord Bradburn and subdue him, taking control of the city. After the battle, they are met by the king of the mysterious werecats, who offers to join their mission to destroy Galbatorix. They accept, knowing they need all the help they can get. That night, Roran and Elaine's baby is born, and they name it Hope. Roran is sent to Arrows as Eragon and the rest of the army proceeds to Drasleona. Roran and his contingent manages to capture Arrows. With their recent success bolstering their confidence, they rejoin the rest of the army at Drasleona. Jayad finds references to an incomplete sewer system under the city, and Eragon leads a group into the city to open the gates for the Varden. During their assault, the magician Karn is killed. Eragon and Arya are captured by the priests of Helgrind, who plan to feed them to the Razak eggs. In a bold move, Angela and Solumbum rescue them. Angela reveals she is in possession of the sharpest blade in existence, Albiter, which she calls Tinkledeath. During their escape, they kill most of the priests. After a desperate battle, Eragon defeats Murtagh and Thorn, driving them away using the energy stored in the ring Arryn, allowing the Varden to take control of the city. Murtagh and Thorn attack the Varden camp and take Nasuada prisoner. Needing leadership, the Varden appoint Eragon as the leader as they march towards Erubane. After Eragon is made leader of the Varden, he decides to find the Vault of Souls. Hoping to arm himself with more information, he asks Solumbum to tell him all he knows about the vault. Solumbum at first refuses, but Eragon convinces him to elaborate. Solumbum reveals that soon after the fall of the Riders, the Werecats race was told that if a dragon rider free from Galbatorix's influence were to ever take wing, they were to advise the rider to look under the roots of the Manoa tree for a weapon and inform them of the Vault of Souls. Heeding Solumbum's advice, Eragon, Glader, and Saphira set out for Roengard. There they discover their true names, which allow them to gain access to the Vault of Souls. Descending into the vault, the three find a massive cache of Eldunari, along with over 200 dragon eggs. The leader of the Eldunari, Umaroth, once a white dragon, tells Eragon and Saphira of how Aromas and Glader were instrumental in saving the dragon eggs and the Eldunari. Long ago, they convinced the wild dragons to give them some eggs for safekeeping, knowing that should Galbatorix's reign not be stopped, the noble race of dragons would fade into history. Eragon departs from Roengard, taking with him many of the Eldunari. Upon leaving, all knowledge of the egg's existence is wiped from the minds of Eragon, Saphira, and the Eldunari accompanying them, so that Galbatorix cannot discover the egg cache should they fall under his control. Eragon leaves for Erubane, now under full siege by the Varden. He is accompanied by the 10 elven spellcasters, Arya and Elva. Their plan is successful, and they break into Galbatorix's citadel. As Eragon desperately tries to locate Galbatorix, the 10 elves are captured. Eragon manages to find him, awaiting him in a massive chamber. Galbatorix reveals that he has learned the true name of the ancient language, granting him unfathomable power, and boasts he can defeat the Varden whenever he chooses. Hoping to convince Eragon to join him, Galbatorix has Eragon once again fight Murtagh. A savage battle ensues. Eragon faints and uses the momentary opening to sink Bersinger deep into Murtagh's belly. Defeated and with his lifeblood pooling about him, Murtagh realizes that his true name has changed, allowing him to break free from Galbatorix's control. Seizing the moment, Murtagh attacks Galbatorix, using the Name of Names to temporarily paralyze Galbatorix's magic, stripping him of his protective wards. Knowing this could be his only opportunity, Eragon draws from the power of the Eldunari and casts a spell. The spell makes Galbatorix understand his crimes, feeling the grief of untold thousands. Galbatorix is unable to defend himself and is overcome with emotion. During this struggle, Arya is engaged in a battle of her own with Galbatorix's dragon. She manages to get the upper hand and stabs Shru Khan in the eye with Niernan. Defenseless and overcome with the grief of his actions, Eragon buries Bersinger and Galbatorix, dealing him a fatal blow. With his last breath, Galbatorix tries to kill everyone in the room by self-destructing. However, Eragon once again draws on the energy from the Eldunari and is able to save everyone. Free for the first time since being bonded with his dragon, Murtagh and Thorn fly north to rediscover themselves and let their hate and rage disperse. After Galbatorix's demise, Nasuada becomes queen of the empire. Arya becomes queen of the elves as her mother perished during the battle. The final unhatched egg in Galbatorix's possession hatches for her, making her a dragon rider as well, and she names her dragon Firnin. With the threat of Galbatorix removed, the spell blocking Eragon and Saphira's memory of the hidden eggs dissolves. With the threat of Galbatorix now gone, Eragon and Saphira turn their minds toward training the next generation of dragon riders and safely caring for the recovered Eldunari. Knowing the races of Alagaësia need to be united, Eragon reworks the ancient magic, binding rider to dragon, to now include dwarves and Urgals. Eragon asks Arya to join him as he prepares to leave Alagaësia. Arya declines, duty-bound to lead the elves as their new queen. With heavy hearts, Eragon and Saphira depart. The book ends with Eragon deciding to put the past behind him. He allows hope, to fill his heart, and he turns toward the future to begin his new adventure to raise and train the next generation of riders. A deep satisfaction settles over him, and he is filled with excitement to begin his new life, a life with dragons and riders.
Oh, bye, you guys.
Bye, you guys. We'll see you again, though. As
Yeah, we
Christopher
will. Yeah,
Paolini told us, Murtagh is coming out, what, September, I think?
like November, I think, somewhere around there. Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing the Murtagh thing like right after I finished up the book, and then I saw the Murtagh post, and it was like, oh, cool. Like I was kind of wondering what was because I don't know, I thought that was kind of like it's like, oh, you got to go because you're mad, I guess. I don't know. I was on the fence about it because it was like, man, Murtagh, you seem like a really like capable person to have around, and like maybe someone that could even help Eragon quite a bit. If the
Yeah.
nature of if his true name had actually really changed, which it did, I'm here for that, right? But if it had, then it seems like when Eragon is kind of like going off to go train these dragon riders, it seems like Murtagh would be the best person to have around for that. So I was kind of like, man,
Right.
like Murtagh, like, but at the same time, I guess it makes sense. I mean, he had just been through quite an ordeal, but I don't know. I just wish
Yeah.
that I kind of wish that it had just been explored like a little bit more. Like like Murtagh just like hates everyone, so he's gonna go cool off.
Right. It
I
seems
don't
like
know.
his name would change after his transformation and letting his hate and rage go away. But I guess it changed before then, and now he needs to go change himself. Like, if you truly have fundamentally changed yourself, you'd think he'd be ready to take on the next thing, and his hate and rage would already have gone away. But maybe
But I guess
intention
not. Yeah.
goes a long way in the world of secret names. And I feel the same, as he kind of got on Thorn and was like, I got to go find myself and flaps off to the north. My initial reaction was lame. Like, this whole book, a very strong theme has been unity, overcoming things together. Galbatorix wasn't defeated alone. Everyone uses the help of those around them to overcome evil.
And
And
unifying different races too. Like that's a big
unifying
thing
different
too.
races.
Yeah.
Totally. And then it's like, but I guess Murtagh has to do this alone. And so he flaps off. It was just kind of,
And
but
Aragon has to do this alone, and Arya has to do this alone, and
right.
like,
Okay. We'll
yeah,
get to
yeah,
that. We'll get to that. But on the Murtagh front, I was like, I was sad until I learned that Murtagh, the next book is coming out. And then I was like,
yeah.
okay, he needed another adventure kind of already in
Well,
the
and not to
workings
mention,
for
there is kind of
Murtagh.
like this cryptic thing that's said to Murtagh before he leaves. It's like avoid like this area or something like. So obviously, I can't remember exactly what the
All
line
that you
was.
see is yours, except for the dark Shadowland.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of Murtagh though, kind of going back just a little bit, um, I also had mixed feelings on so Nasuada being taken prisoner. I thought was one of the most interesting developments in this whole
Same.
series. I thought it was great. I thought it was an awesome idea. Like, yeah, let's make let's make this difficult for everybody. Like this would probably be the worst possible thing that could happen right now, and I'm so glad it did.
Right.
But then
And it allowed Murtagh and Nasuada to kind of develop a little deeper relationship, spend some time together, albeit kind of misery time, but whatever.
yeah, I don't know, but I feel like having the chapters from Nasuada's perspective was, I don't know, like I feel like having them from Murtagh's perspective would have been better since he's the one that changed
Totally.
more.
And
You
he's the one
know,
struggling. I want to see what's going on in his brain. I know what's going on in Nasuada's brain. OF.
seriously though, I mean, like Nasuada is an awesome character, really. But like seeing Murtagh's change in character from his own perspective would have been a lot better to
A
read, in my opinion.
smeagly sort of back and
I don't know.
forth.
Like, I mean, but seeing Nasawada's kind of like mindset during all of this was definitely interesting. Seeing her being questioned by Galbatorix, you know, Galbatorix's whole reasoning for everything, like magic is essentially like it's too much, like it's too powerful for everybody. And I thought that Galbatorix like was a pretty interesting villain, actually. I mean, like honestly, man, I think it was a pretty cool idea that somebody that's this intimate with the magical realm, the magical world, like the ins and outs of magic, like Galbatorix is, kind of like sees it as a burden for this whole world, right? He's like, it's too much. Like, there's too much of it out there. It's hurting people. Now, the twist on it, though, is it's like that's the question, though. It's like, well, okay, well then who gets to say who gets to wield it and who doesn't, and he's very okay with it being him, which is
Right,
why
right.
he's got to go. And that's like kind of the question that I had been asking for a lot of the series. It's like, well, what's up? Why is Galbatorix so bad? And it's like, in my opinion, it's because he is superficially like, no, I want to do this for the good of the people, but really he wants a hold on this magic to do with as he pleases, which
He's using
lent,
altruism to pave the road to his
right,
own
it like
power.
lent a lot, in my opinion, to why he had to go.
Right.
Which I liked. I liked that was in there, and I liked that it was from Nasuada's perspective, and that's why I like those chapters so much. It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was. I agree with everything that you just said, and that I really liked that it was part of this book and it was an idea introduced and looked at a little bit. What I didn't like was kind of the timing of it. I thought that it would have been far more realized if over the course of the last few books, occasionally we would get maybe even from Murtagh with Galbatorix, but even better, a from Galbatorix's perspective, a few little tiny chapters to kind of build him as a character because he's this big baddie. And then right at the end, he gets introduced as a big baddie with seemingly altruistic intentions, kind of like introducing this whole thought idea, this whole thing right at the end. And it was like, man, this should have been something that we had been discovering and Eragon could have been fighting with over the course of the last few pages. I felt like that would have lent a little more weight to his character and some depth there, whereas he's just like a big bad guy who's like, oh, kind of interesting, you're a smart big bad guy, and then he just gets killed.
Yeah, like if Aragon had found out about that kind of early on, and then like every time Aragon uses magic, he's like, am I just bastardizing this? Like am I making the
Right.
world a worse place because of this? And that's
Right.
another thing that like I wasn't a super big fan of with the ending is that while it was exciting and it was climactic at a lot of
It's
points
well
for sure.
executed.
I mean, kind of. I mean, some parts were and some parts weren't. I mean, like I feel
Right.
like Aragon, like I was waiting for Aragon to be tempted, and
Yes.
maybe that's a cliche that I'm just really used to in these kinds of stories. But I was waiting for Galbatorix to say, "Okay, so here is my viewpoint." And you can join me, and this is how awesome everything could be, and like really show Aragon and the audience like why it would be so tempting, but it's really just join me, and Aragon's like never, and it's just like
Never. Yeah.
it's just like okay, I guess I mean yeah,
Totally.
just
Totally.
it
Yeah.
just made it fall a little bit flat for me, like because now it's like okay, well obviously he's got to go, so get him, I guess, and then he does, and it's like woohoo, so it just felt
Right. What I wish you would have done was take a page. There's definitely some pages that he took from other books, and I wish you would have taken some pages from that scene at the end of what is it, the second Expanse, maybe the first Expanse book, where the one guy is like using his logic to justify what he did to Eros and the proto molecule, killing thousands of innocents. That was like, and he almost convinces everybody, and then the detective shoots him. That was the speech that we needed to be like, huh, boy, that's kind of a good point. And then Aragon was like, but no, and stabs him. That would have been so cool. And
and not to mention, Aragon is able to take Galbatorix down, not because of
oh my
anything that
gosh,
Aragon learned, not because of any specific like fighting
this is
maneuvers or
my
like
biggest beef.
abilities or anything like that. It's like these rocks that he found on an island, and it's like it's cool that he had to go. It's cool that he went there. It's cool that in the process of going there, he learned his true name and everything
Right,
like
like
that.
the Dragon
A lot,
Soul rocks, the
like
Eldenarius.
yeah, like a lot of
Yeah,
parts of that are really great, and then add it all together as the final thing that takes Galbatorix down. It's kind of like, well, then is that really it? Like, I mean, he's just is that's how he's
right.
taken out. Like, you just show him how, like, if he's really that if he's really that evil of a person, Galbatorix, then I feel like showing him the wrongs that he's doing isn't really gonna do it. Like that's what happened, right? Am I reading this wrong? Like, is
No, you're
that
totally right. He was like, "Hey, sociopath, here's all the people that you murdered," and he was like, "Oh man, I didn't realize that hurt." And then he
yeah?
like it was just so, I'm gonna say it, lame. It was just lame to be like, and I defeated him with emotions. I made him feel, and it
I
was like,
know, but
oh,
when I was reading it, like in the moment, I was like, "Damn, that's pretty poetic, actually." But then I like kept thinking about it, and I was like, "Oh, maybe that's kind of lame." But while I was reading it, it really added a lot to the climax. You know what I mean? It was such a it's why I say I have mixed feelings on this, because I literally did. Like when I was
Right.
reading it, I was in the moment. I was in there in that giant room that could house dragons with Galbatorix on his throne, like with like this big white
Right.
sword, and everybody's here, everybody's doing it, and then Eragon shows Galbatorix all the hurt that he's caused, and it was like this really cool poetic way of doing it. And then you kind of like think about it more, and it's like, well, I mean, Aragon didn't really like do anything though.
Right.
Like, what
Like,
was
I
the
don't know.
point of all of
I
this?
wish
Like,
that he would have tried that and then have Galbatorix like start laughing and be like, but I would bathe Alagaësia in the
yeah,
bloods of my
maybe
enemies
that's a
to
little too
accomplish my
dark for
goal,
the.
you know? I don't know. I feel like he
Yeah,
didn't commit to Galbatorix needed to be bad or justified and good. And we kind of had this like middle ground where it was like, man, okay, he's gone. That's cool. But man, okay, who I really feel sorry for, who really got the short end of the stick or short end of the spear, I should say, is his dragon,
I know.
who just was stabbed in the eye.
What was the deal with what's his dragon's name? Like Sh-
Shrikon. It's like Shurikon, like the tiger, but it's
Shuriken. Yeah, it was like Shuriken.
Shrui
Yeah.
con.
Yeah, and it sucks because that dragon is like a total victim in all of this.
Totally
Like been like genetically modified and magically modified by Galbatorix.
stolen from his
Yeah,
real
his
rider.
mind is all messed up. Yeah, that was pretty lame. It's like, man, that dragon didn't really do anything wrong. But I guess
Yeah,
he
maybe
had to
have him
go.
set out with Eragon to like, or maybe have him set out with Murtagh to like begin his life of resuscitation or something. I don't know.
Maybe,
Have
but
him
at the
begin the
same
dragons
time,
of the wild.
also, I mean, it kind of made sense that both rider and dragon had to go, right? So I can see
Yeah,
why, like, they're kind of like a pair, right? But yeah, reading it, I was kind of like, oh man, that dragon was so cool. Like, why? Damn it.
yeah. He has a really cool name, probably the coolest name of all of them.
And I loved how, yeah, like Paolini's description of him, like when like the curtains move behind Galbatorix, and it's actually the dragon's wings, and it's just how big that freaking dragon is, and I thought that was really awesome. It was like a
Yeah,
good reveal there. But yeah, so there were a lot of parts of this climax that really worked, but like in summation, it just left me feeling a little like just a little disappointed with everything, and then everything kind of simpering down. I wasn't really super upset with any of the like Arya getting a dragon. I thought was fine. Like, cool. Let's get another rider up in here. Like, I feel like she is, if anything, if anybody could have a dragon, I feel like Arya would be a great dragon rider. It makes
sure.
sense.
Okay,
Um,
let me before you move on from that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The only thing that I kind of was like, okay, was I feel like, and I've mentioned this in previous podcasts when it's like, when we were reading David, it was like, I don't like to discover that one person is special because they have magic powers. And then the next chapter, you discover a whole city full of people with magic powers. It just removes the specialness. And I felt like that happened so many times during this book. Like everyone gets a magic weapon, everyone gets captured, everyone, it's like, all of a sudden there's millions of werecats. And it's like, by that point, I was so sick of everyone getting the things that made our hero special that I was like, of course she gets a dragon. Everybody just gets a dragon now. And also, my second thought on that is, she wasn't she hauling that egg back and forth for countless years? Like, why didn't it hatch then? Just the little guy was sleepy or something?
Sleepy. It
It's like
has
now
fair.
I'm going to hatch for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Was it that egg? Was it three eggs
Yeah,
that
yeah, it was
she
three.
was?
One
Yeah,
went to
yeah,
Murtagh, one to Eragon,
totally.
and then she got the third. And it was like, man, she already had that one. It should have. Maybe they can.
It just wasn't ready yet.
Right, and it's like,
Maybe Galbatorix's influence over it slowed it down or something. Like,
right.
I don't
Okay,
know. Yeah,
I have a question.
really good
What?
question actually.
Right, right.
Somebody would
Like,
probably be able to fill us in on that. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess maybe her true name changed or something in the struggles of everything, and so he's like, "Oh, I like you now." I don't know. Okay, so help me understand what exactly changed Murtagh's true name.
So one of the explanations seems to be there's like a story that somebody tells, or I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but we find out as a reader that your true name can change if you conduct yourself differently, right? Like your true name is not set in stone, and I think it's even brought up with regard to Murtagh at an earlier point in the series. And so Murtagh chooses to help Nasuada, right? It's hinted at that there's some kind of like love connection there too, a romance connection there of sorts, or that they love each other. in that
Hmm.
way. But more than that, it's Murtagh chooses to go against or do something that he knows would make Galbatorix really upset and
Okay.
basically betray Galbatorix for the good of this cause and everything. So I think that that's what changes. I look at the name as like your nature, you know what I mean?
Your
It's like
essence,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean like Murtagh is no longer the kind of person that would betray somebody even though he knows it's the wrong thing to do. You know, like he would do it if it was the right thing to do, which gives him a lot more integrity and like
Right.
that's kind of what did it, you know. That's at
Right,
least
which
that's how
is
I looked at it. Like,
okay. Okay, that all makes sense to me, and that's really cool. The thing that kind of muddies the waters for me was the changing of his name frees him from Galbatorix's control. So was he controlled by Galbatorix, thus not making the decisions himself, or was he choosing to be on Galbatorix's side? It's like, was he under control or not? Was he making the choices to do that or not? And if he wasn't, then how does now choosing the good, which he never even had the ability to do in the first place because he was under control, change his true nature because it wasn't him making those actions. It was the control of Galbatorix's influence being imposed
but
upon
see,
him.
I think that I see my theory is that Murtagh, like Galbatorix, this whole time has specifically chosen not to control people's minds, right? Like he doesn't do it to Nasuada. Even I think it's even mentioned. Like, and he's like, no, I'm not. I don't do that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and so the
I'll
thing with
just torture
Murtagh,
you
the
instead.
thing, well, yeah, but like still, but with
Still better
Murtagh,
though.
I guess, but like with Murtagh, like some part of Murtagh was choosing to do this stuff. You know, like when he has this conversation with Eragon at the end of Eldest, and he says, you need to hear it from his point of view. You know what I mean? That's really Murtagh talking there. That's Murtagh's nature. That's Murtagh's name. And so while he's being influenced, he's not necessarily being controlled by Galbatorix. So that's why it's really
Okay.
difficult. It's really difficult for Murtagh to change his name to go against the things that he has learned from Galbatorix, the influence that has been set onto him by Galbatorix, but not necessarily a 100% elimination of Murtagh's autonomy. You know, so while it is extremely difficult for him to do that, he did do it, which did change his name. That's at least how I look at it. You know, like Galbatorix didn't have any interest in literally controlling Murtagh or Nasuada's or even Eragon's minds. At least as far as from the text that I read, you know what I mean, from
Okay,
what I
right.
was getting.
He like convinced them of the goodness or the rightness of his ways and then had them like swear fealty basically, which
Yeah, I
was the
mean,
control. Okay, that makes sense to
they
me.
wouldn't even like it's like how good of a servant would they really be if they didn't really believe like of their own volition what he was wanting to
Right, they'd
do,
be
you know.
slaves.
Right, exactly, and they wouldn't be as useful. They'd still be kind of useful but not as useful. Like Murtagh,
Right.
think about how useful Murtagh was when Galbatorix got him to really see his point of view. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
think
I
about
think
the way.
stealing Nasuada was all on him.
Right, exactly. And then he gets there and
Right.
he's like,
Okay.
wait a minute. And that's why his name changed. I thought all of that was good. Honestly, like
Okay.
that's
Okay.
like
Now
a
that you cleared
great
it,
part
I
of the
think it's
book.
good too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about love. I am
Yeah, let's
intrigued.
do it.
Let's talk about love. I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on the teasing kind of like vapid buildup that we had of maybe flaccid was the word, the flaccid buildup of Eragon and Arya's relationship, and then the kind of teasy introduction that we get from the potential of a relationship between Murtagh and Nasuada, and then we get like a crazy scene of mating between two dragons, and everybody goes their separate ways, and nobody gets the love. Thoughts?
So, okay, so my thoughts on this, and this might be controversial. I might piss a lot of people off when I say this, but I would have done the exact same thing, honestly. Like this was never a story about Aragon and Arya getting together.
Right, but give us Nasuada and Murtagh then, or
Maybe
have
that
them
one.
kiss or
Okay, maybe that
something.
one. Maybe Nasuada and Murtagh give a little ship there. But in my opinion, this was always bigger than like a teenager's crush on 100-year-old elf. You know, I mean, I think that it's shown multiple times throughout the text, like that this isn't what this is about. Like this is bigger than how Aragon feels about Arya, and regardless of their feelings about each other, it's remained bigger than them too. And
Right.
I think that's what that last scene between Aragon and Arya is all about. Is like even Aragon is like, come on, and and
Right.
Arya is like,
Please.
no, I
But your
I
face
am
is beautiful as the moon.
I'm a queen. I'm a queen, and you got to go start your own Dragon Rider Academy. Like we're not done working yet, and this thing can't happen. And honestly, I really liked that. I thought it was great. It was a very good example of how the story's not over. Like and things are bigger than just how you feel about something. Things are bigger than what you want sometimes. And it's a bittersweet ending where Aragon, trains his ass off. He goes through a whole lot of things over the course of these books. He learns so much. His personality changes so much. And still, he's not in a position
And
to
life
be
ain't
in that
fair.
relationship. I mean, that's kind of that's
No,
what
you're
I
right.
took from it, at least. I mean, because it would have been like boy gets the girl at the end, seal it with a kiss at the very end. Yeah, yeah. But then what are they going to do? Are they going
Right.
to have a long distance relationship where they're talking to each other by scrying for months at a time, and like like are they going to have like scry sex and stuff and like
Scry
no,
sex.
no, they're not going to do that. Like, and I remember thinking that like
Send scry nudes.
I mean, but like no, that's not how it's going to happen. Like Aragon has to go do this thing. Arya is a queen now. She's got
Right.
responsibilities, and I would hope that Aragon meets somebody else that it lines up more with kind of like what he's got going on. And
Yeah.
maybe it's Arya down the line because she's a dragon rider and stuff, but not right now. And
Right.
that was kind of the essence of their whole thing, or if you could even call it a thing, throughout
Yeah.
most of the book, is not right now. And I think that having Aragon have feelings for her, and then not having those feelings reciprocated, and then building those feelings to grow into a more like mature kind of like respect and love for each other, but having it still not be quite the time. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that too. I definitely could, and
Totally.
it felt like it made more sense. And I know that, so that's my whole thing on it. And I know that it's really controversial because I've seen reviews where people were like, yeah, the book is fine, but I hate Paolini because he did this, like he should have just smashed these two together and they should have just banged off into the sunset. But I didn't see it.
Okay. I agree with what you just said. That made a lot of sense to me, and I like that. And it reinforces the theme of personal sacrifice. Sometimes you have to set aside what you want in order to do what's right and in order to do what's best for everyone around you. I really like what you said. That was good. What did confuse me a little bit? Two things. One, I didn't really know that the story wasn't complete, that Paolini had a plan to write more. So like that kind of assuages me a little bit. What you said helps a lot. And then also
Like
my
knowing
last
that there's more.
question, yeah, knowing that there's more. And then my last question would be, why does Aragon feel the need to seek out a place to train the dragons? Doesn't the elves already have like the system set up and they have the spot? And then I feel like there was really no reason for Aragon to be separate from Arya. Though I like what you said. It doesn't, barring their love, like the Elvish forest seems like a great place to train the dragons.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I did find now. Okay, what you
Probably
just said.
something in there for sure.
Yeah, what you
Like,
just said, I loved. I love it a lot. Like it, great. I'm on the side of what you just said. What I do think is still a little like, what was the smash sesh we had between Arya's dragon and Saphira?
yeah, that
That
was
was like,
really because it's funny because
what?
Saphira's just like, oh, you got to make sure you don't bang anybody because it'd be like if we were banging and I'd
Right,
totally be
so
there. And
intimate, and I'm in your brain.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then like the first dragon Saphira meets, he's just like, let's get it on, let's go. And
yeah, and
then
Aragon's like lizard sex, and then they just
yeah,
like
that's a
leave. They have
little
like a
odd.
one night stand, and like this dragon is pretty young, right? He was like magicked into having an older body, so she like did it with a
I know,
youngling.
and
Like
Saphira's
I
like
don't know,
giving Aragon a bunch of shit about how Arya is way older than him, and she's just like, no, it's like
totally.
totally different with dragons. It's totally not a big deal. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I'm happy that
Someone
Saphira.
got some
I know.
for
Yeah,
real.
yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things about when you get to the end of a 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 word story like this. It's like what we were talking about with the Dark Tower, right? Where like we want everything to sew itself up so nicely. We want everything to make sense. We want everything to
Totally. Be clean.
Yeah, and I think that there's a really big difference between something not being sewn up because the story's not over, and something being uh, kind of thrown together for convenience sake that doesn't really make sense for the story. Those are
Hmm.
two different things. You know what I mean? So, um, like in my opinion, Arya and Eragon not getting together makes sense for the story if you zoom out and look at it. In my opinion, and I know a lot of people disagree with that, but then like Eragon using like these rocks basically to like take down Galbatorix. I just thought it was I thought it was a little bit phoned in, you know,
Right, like
like
why have it be the cause of a weapon that takes him out? Let's reinforce the theme of unity and togetherness overcoming the evil, which kind of was, but then like the end it was like, yeah, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without the magic super weapon that we had.
I mean, I guess you could make the argument that they are able to, like, because of all the training that Aragon had gone through, and them all being together up until that point, they wouldn't have gotten to that point without that having been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
And I
guess you
guess
could make that argument.
the magic rocks are the Eldenari, are the slain souls of all the dragons. So it is kind of like
That's why I said it
apropos
was
that it's their
poetic. Yeah,
revenge.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay,
That's
okay, I'm with that.
but the only reason I didn't like it was because it felt to me like why did it have to be Aragon that did that? You know what I mean? And
Right.
like it felt like the story was setting it up so that like Aragon was going to have to be the one that took Galbatorix out. Like maybe I'm reading too much into things, but I feel
No,
like
you're
it's pretty
not.
clear.
That was, yeah,
Like, yeah,
was,
so
that
I
was
mean
definitely
it's not the Harry Potter like prophecy where like not one can't live while the other survives or whatever. It wasn't quite that black and white, but obviously Aragon's gonna have to. I wish it was something that I wish it was like an ability or something that Aragon had learned that Galbatorix wasn't expecting, or that Galbatorix like underestimated his ability to do something, or you know,
right.
not Galbatorix didn't think that Aragon would have a bag full of magic rocks. You know what I mean?
And
Like
make him
that's
just be overcome with emotions. But I thought,
yeah.
and we really try not to rewrite authors' books, as clearly this is beloved by the hearts of many. But that being said, I think it would be really cool if Aragon used his magic to destroy the bond binding his dragon to him, and then Shrew Khan comes out of nowhere at the end and chomps him down.
That would have been cool.
Right,
Yeah,
gobbles him up, and it's like his own evil ends up killing him. His own
yeah.
twisted machinations
I
end
mean,
up being his
you could say
downfall.
that's kind of already what happened in a
Yeah,
roundabout way, but I like I kind of like yours. It would have like visually looked like way cooler
yeah,
because
totally.
I mean, you know, if I'm left with a feeling of like, really, that was it, then that's not, you know, I don't think it's going to be
Right,
that great.
right.
But yeah,
Something I really liked in this book is, and we mentioned it just minutes ago, but is the reoccurring theme of unity. Everyone needs to come together to overcome evil. Kind of like the quote that I really love, which is, the only thing that evil needs is for good men to do nothing. And this was a real strongly themed story of goodness getting together, overcoming their own personal squabblings, overcoming the differences that are super long, deep ingrained in them, like between Urgles and the rest of everyone else, to
yeah.
come together and defeat the unity, which is why the ending did feel a little bit like just kind of wait, what? When everybody goes their separate ways. It was like unity and not unity.
Well, I mean, they needed unity to take down that evil, but then it makes sense that they would separate to go do their various things that they need to do. You know, there's no more big evil in the world that they all need to unify against. I mean, it's like when the Avengers don't have to fight anybody; they're all off doing their own thing. You know,
Right, right.
uh,
Getting solo
so
movies.
so it kind of makes sense. But I want to talk about Roran for a little bit
Yeah.
because he oscillates between someone that I am so excited to read and someone where I can't figure out why he has this many pages. You know, it's so weird because like sometimes when Roran's on the page, like when you're staring down at a good like Roran jumping into a battle like scene, those are so
Crushing some
much fun. Those are
skulls.
huge high points of the series for me. And
Definitely.
even down to like different conversations that Roran has, like when Roran and King Orin get in a fight, like not a
Yeah.
fight, but like get an argument. I was just on team Roran there, and I
Yep. The
really,
relationship between him and Katrina, excellent.
yeah, a lot of Roran is tackled very, very well. Having him have a different of a temperament than Aragon and stuff, and you know he's Aragon's cousin, but he's a different guy, you know, and so I liked exploring that. It's like then you kind of like zoom in a little bit more, and you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
did he really like what was up with him? going and sieging like Aros, like that was like he's the exact same guy at the end of that. Nothing's really changed other than that they had eliminated something. They didn't want to fight a war on two fronts or
Right.
whatever, but it's
We
like,
didn't even hear of this city beforehand. There was no
yeah,
strategic like
yeah,
like
Nasuada was like, you just got to go take care of this. And then he just like rides off and takes care of it and then
dun,
comes
da, da,
back. And it's
da,
like, this was like 100 pages. I mean, his friend, his like sorcerer friend, um,
Karen.
Karen, which Karen was cool. I liked him.
Yeah.
But like he died and like that whole scene visually was really awesome when Karen died like that. When he was fighting that other sorcerer and stuff. It's great. So, you know, it's a cool battle, but like, what's the point of any of this? Like, why do we have to keep
Right.
going back to this like over and
Like
over again?
exciting but
You
ultimately
know?
purposeless.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why Brissinger was kind of rough to get through, and then it's not really as much of an issue at all in this book, in my opinion. Like it felt a lot more like, all right, now we got to go do this. We got to go do this now. Now we got to go do this. Oh, we just found out about this. Cool, let's go take care of this. And it felt more like the ending of a series to me, which
Right.
was great.
Not so much time kneading dough and talking to the village people.
Yeah, like Roran and Aros, it was just kind of like, all right. Well, I mean,
Right.
I'm glad that
Okay.
Roran got another thing to go do, but he didn't even like come back with anything cool or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Like
what if when Roran had like gone to Aros, he had been like, I found these like magic spearheads that'll like, I don't know,
right, or freed the
you know?
king of the werecats, allowing him to rally all the other werecats, which was also like, what? Like they're legendary. We don't even know if they exist. Oh, there's one crazy creatures of legend.
Yeah.
There's a whole civilization of them. They have a king. Like, okay,
I like the werecats.
werecats. Me too. I love the
Yeah.
werecats. It was just weirdly presented, kind of like, and I feel like that's what happens a lot in this book is you are kind of set up to be like, oh, I anticipating one thing, and then it kind of turns a weird direction. Like Angela straight up prophesies that Eragon will have a, and I quote, epic romance.
Yeah.
He didn't even get to first base. Like he didn't even get to bat. Like he was just like, what? But I mean, maybe that's the future time, and knowing that the
Yeah, it
story
could
is
be. Yeah.
unfinished assuages a lot of my like arched eyebrows.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this book was like definitely it was well received in the sense that I think people really liked reading the last part of this cycle, you know. But I think that for a lot of people when this came out in like 2011, they were just like kind of how you were feeling with just like, what? Like, wait, that's it? You just
Yeah.
wrapped it up? Like we're done? And no, no, there's going to be more stuff that comes out. So I think like even when we started this, I had already heard rumors that there was going to be a fifth book. So I was kind of
Oh, okay.
aware that this wasn't really like the ending. So me getting to the end of this book and knowing that there's going to be more to come, I was kind of like I had a different mindset about it. Like I'm sure in
The right
2011,
mindset.
I mean, I'm sure it's just like when Crossroads of Twilight came out, like the Wheel of Time book. I think like quite a bit of time had passed between books 9 and 10 in the Wheel of Time, like or at least not like a bunch of time, but more time than had passed between the previous ones. And so people were like, "Man, when's that 10th book coming out? Like something crazy just happened in book 9." And there's like a really intense, there's an important event that happens in book 9 of the Wheel of Time.
Is that after or before
I don't want to
Sanderson has the story?
Oh, Sanderson took over on book 12.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so this was still Robert Jordan. And
There's
then
so many.
when Crossroads of Twilight came out, apparently a lot of people were really upset because Crossroads of Twilight is like it's like a pretty boring book. I mean, a couple cool things happen, but it's a lot of like tea and sitting in the White Tower and like kind of just plotting and talking about like C list characters that don't really matter and like just a
Arguing
lot.
over who gets to be with the
Oh,
hero.
not even that. No, no. There's like it's
Is that
not a lot
resolved by
happens.
then?
No, it's not. But like just
Oh, okay.
not a lot happens in Crossroads. So a lot of people were really frustrated with that book. But then on a read now, if you were to just go through all the books right now and you didn't have to wait that long between books 9 and 10 and then you were able to move on to 11 quickly,
Mm,
like it wouldn't be that
much
bad
of a
for people.
letdown.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of and when I read it, I was like, this is boring, but I don't know, it's fine. Like I know that I'm gonna move on to 11
Right.
soon.
You don't
Um,
mind the filler episode when you know you have more after it.
right, exactly. So like, so when this book came out, because of the way that the ending feels very kind of like almost like when Arya kills the Night King in the 8th season of Game of Thrones, where it's like, wow, we really built up to that, and with like one paragraph, one little action,
Think
like it's over,
right.
and so all right, well,
Well,
I guess we're just moving on and going to figure some other stuff out now. But
yeah.
Galbatorix was like the main villain for so long.
It was more preparatory feeling than conclusionary,
But I mean, like, think about it. Like, what if there's 8 books in this series and Galbatorix was one out of like a bigger like situation that Eragon
Totally.
and the people that he trains are going to have to deal with in conjunction with the elves and the dwarves and everything. And this was all just like a
A
setup,
setup.
And so like that's how I kind of like went into the ending of this book, which I feel like I'm a lot more privileged of a reader to be able to do that, because in 2011 I probably would have felt the same and been like, wait, what? Like, what the hell is
If I
this?
if I were to recommend these books to people, I would tell them to go into it with that mindset because it'll
Yeah,
really
yeah,
ease your experience of the last. Okay, so I have a quote and a question.
sure.
As Murtagh was about to leave, she said, "Murtagh." He paused and turned to regard her. She hesitated for a moment, then mustered her courage and said, "Why? Why her? Why save her? And now why try to rescue her?" And she had guessed at the answer, but she wanted to hear him say it. And he stared at her for the longest while, and then in a low, hard voice, he said, "You know why. Why do you think is his reason? What do you think is his reason? What is the why?"
I mean, he just loves her.
Okay,
Like, it's that. I feel like it's just that simple. Like,
totally.
yeah, he just loves her. Like,
Right.
and
Like
she
if anything
knows.
can break evil's calloused defenses, it's love. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. And
I just
yeah,
wanted to make sure that I was with you on that one.
yeah. I mean, definitely.
What did you think about Galbatorix's self-destruct move?
Kind of reminded me of Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. Like at the end when he's like,
If you
"Ah," and then he
can't
like
have it,
takes,
no
yeah,
one
he just like
can.
takes down the castle and they all have to run out of there and stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. By
It
that
was
point, I
interesting.
was like, yeah, sure, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
fine, fine. I'm
I was,
glad that Eragon finally used Arin the ring because he forgets to use it so
no, he
often.
doesn't forget to use it. He chooses not to use it.
Oh, in his
Like,
first battle with Murtagh, he did, and he even says, like, I
yeah,
wish
I
I would
guess,
have
yeah.
remembered to
No,
use
that's
that
true. That's
vast
true. That's true.
pool of
But
power.
for a lot of the time in Brissinger and in Inheritance, I feel like there's like a couple different scenes where he's really tempted, but he
Yeah, that's
doesn't.
true. When he gets free from Hellgrind after rescuing Katrina with Roran, he's like destitute, trying to like
Yeah.
get energy by like killing the plants, and he's all sad about it. He has this like unfathomably large pool on his finger.
Can he only use it the one time though?
I don't think so. I think it works like any of his others. He can use it as at his leisure.
Hmm. I feel
I
like he.
think
I think
so
he can only
anyway.
use it the one time. I think it's like stored up. But speaking of Brahm, because the ring was Brahm's, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Given to him by
speaking,
his son Zanzandi.
it's funny when Aragon is in Galbatorix's like final boss arena, and Galbatorix is like, "You're the son of Morzan," like blah blah blah. And then Aragon's like, "No, actually, Murtagh is my half brother. My dad is Brahm, actually." And then Galbatorix is like, "Ah, totally. Yeah, no, you're right. I totally see it." And it was just it was just like this funny like family reunion style conversation where
Wait,
he's
he
like,
slept with. Oh, okay,
"Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
totally,
That makes
totally.
sense.
No,
Yeah, they
yeah,
always had an eye for each
actually,
other.
damn, you're actually pretty kind of a spitting image of that guy. All right, all right." And then he's like, "This will be way more interesting," which leads me to my other point, which was like, I thought it was it's just kind of like funny that Galbatorix was just like, "Okay, so before I
Okay.
conduct my evil on all of you, first a duel
Right.
between
But first,
I
fight your
like
brother.
literally just for sport." And he's even like, "Don't kill each other. I just want to see you guys fight."
Right.
And it's like,
Entertain me. He's evil, not evil. Okay, speaking of his specific flavor of evil, right? He was like, I need to destroy magic because it's too powerful, yada yada. But then at the end, Nasuada tasks Aragon to kind of, she's like, magic is too powerful. We need someone to police it, which is weird because like who polices the police, but that's a different question. So she's like, Aragon, do that. But that seems like exactly what Galbatorix was trying to do. So it's like Nasuada just kind of like picked up the mantle of Gal. I mean, of course, she's going to go about it better, I guess, but it seemed
no,
weird
yeah,
that
Aragon's
their
just,
goals were the same.
well, I mean, I think Galbatorix's whole thing is that he's like crazy, right? That's what
Right.
everybody says about him. Is like he's been corrupted by his own past or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Galbatorix is not in a position to handle that kind of power. So like Eragon isn't fighting against the idea of this power. He's fighting against the wrong people using it. Which
Okay.
is which I don't know. Like I don't because then it's like it's weird because it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, like, just because, like, I mean, Aragon, how many people have you murdered? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like in the name of keeping people safe. And I'm not even saying that's a failing of this series. That's one of the big questions that this series does ask, and the characters ask it frequently. And I think it's one of the things that this series handles pretty well. Is at at what point are you crossing the line into the very evil that you're trying to destroy? Right? I mean, like,
Right.
how many people have like Roran kills 200 people or 193 or whatever. He corrects that guy.
We know because
Um,
he's counting.
yeah. Well, I think someone else counted, but he remembered the number. But you know, like Aragon kills people while they're screaming. Aragon kills. There's so many parts in Inheritance where it's like they're like talking to each other and killing people just kind of like casually as they're like trying to get somewhere. You know, it'll like the narration will say like Roran was like running along the battlements and noticed something, and then these guys got in his way and he like killed them real quick and then moved on. And it's like,
Right.
dude, he just killed like two people, like human beings, you know.
That one guy was
uh
begging Aragon for his life as
right,
he ran away,
exactly.
and Aragon still killed him.
So but I think that you know, we're only seeing Aragon's side of things, but I mean Galbatorix, uh through kind of like his own admission, I feel like wouldn't have been a very good person to police or at least like be in charge of controlling who gets to use magic and who doesn't.
Again, the point that this story is going to be continued really helps a lot here. But if this was the last one, I think I might have preferred it if Aragon just decided to stop making more dragon riders and just released all the eggs and the dragons to like live, undo the magic, and like release them to live and flourish in the wild, thus ensuing never again would any one person have the dragon fueled power to make another Galbatorix. Like ultimate power corrupts ultimately, and I see history just kind of doomed to repeat itself with the lessons of the past never being learned. It's like, let's do the exact same thing and set up a situation where that can happen again, but this time we just won't let it. Like, what?
Right. I know there's like a certain kind of like it's almost like there's like a certain like status quo being kept here, you know.
Yeah.
Which is definitely interesting, but
And he's like, we'll let the dwarves and the Urgles in. It's like, okay, it seems like a twisted sense of equality where every race just is now equally capable of destroying the world. Like, wow,
well,
how liberating.
and I think that's where a lot of like parallels between this and Star Wars get drawn. You know, I mean, like Luke after the events, at least in like Legends canon, Luke after the events of Return of the Jedi goes and forms a new Jedi Academy, which I think is actually tackled in the new stuff. But I don't know.
Hopefully.
I'm twisting up lore here, but like Luke goes and starts a new Jedi Academy, and then like a lot of the conversations around the Jedi, even in like the prequels and a lot of the movies and stuff, is like, well, are the Jedi like really a force for good though? You know,
Right.
and I think that the same thing could be said here, where it's like, you know, are the Dragon Riders going to continue to be a force for good? Like maybe they were
That's
at some point in the past,
right.
but do we even really need them? You know, like is
Right.
Alagaësia the same Alagaësia as it was when we had the Dragon Riders? You know, and I think that like for Aragon, for the story to assume that they need them, is odd because I don't think that there's ever really been but then you get people like Galbatorix that crop up, and the only one that was able to
But
take
he
him down was a
wouldn't have
dragon.
cropped up if
Yeah,
the Dragon Riders didn't exist. You know, it's like a
yeah,
it's kind of
yeah, yeah.
short-sighted in that yes, we've elected the official of our dreams. We've got the president who's gonna kill it. Let's give him all the power. But like the next president might not be. So I feel like it's very dangerous to give one group or one individual so much power, regardless of that person's goodness or altruism. Because if that power can be passed on to the next person, there's no way of ensuring that that person won't abuse it, which is exactly what brought down the Dragon Riders. And we're just doing that again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe that'll be dealt with though in the
Maybe
next
it will,
books.
yeah.
Because I
Like I
think
said,
that
that does assuage a lot of this.
and I think that like Paolini was exploring that in these books. Um I mean, having Aragon be so conflicted about so many different things, I mean, I would have been just as conflicted at certain parts because like I said in like I think the first or second episode that we did on this, like who like Aragon doesn't have like a full picture of what's going on
Right.
here, which is why like yeah, like you said at the beginning of the episode, it would have been nice to have maybe some Galbatorix point of view chapters in like book 3 or something, or and I think that's what was attempted with Nasuada being taken. Is like we needed to see we couldn't just wait to see Galbatorix until like the very end of the book. It would have felt very like pulpy, you know, to
Hmm.
kind of like save the Dark Lord until the very end, and then the Dark Lord is just like, "I'm gonna kill all of you," blah, 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 blah. And like um, it wouldn't have made for like I think I feel like there was at least a pretty great attempt here at like yeah, at establishing a sympathetic antagonist. But I think that it probably should have been stretched into the previous books so that we really would have like been tempted ourselves as the reader, which would have like introduced a lot more conflict into the story.
I'm curious to, and I sound like I'm picking this apart, but I really did enjoy reading it. But there's just like I said, or like you said, all of it was great. And then right at the end, you're kind of like, huh, well, those are some interesting decisions, such as including the Urgles, which I think eventually should happen. But I feel like that's something that should happen 50 years from now. Like Garzvog talking with Eragon during their run was like, I know that we need to fundamentally change our culture, or the part of it that makes it so the only way to establish yourself is by killing an already established member of our culture. Because we didn't really see any of that change, but we've heard from one member of their race that is no longer around that was like, yeah, we need to change, but then now we should equip all of the other ones with dragons. Like, let's wait till they change and then give them the dragons.
Maybe that's what the Dragon Riders ultimately should be for, is to police each other instead of like
Ooh,
Alagaësia. You know what I mean? So
nice.
like if there was like an Urgle uprising, it's like, well, no, give them the opportunity, you know, and have the respect for these other races that they deserve, and
Right.
treat and
Empower themselves.
yeah, like
Okay,
keep
okay.
everybody on the same level. And then if one wants to hang itself by its own rope, then the other Dragon Riders can come in and deal with it. But I mean, like withholding that from the other races would, I feel like, create enmity where it didn't need to be anyway. So I like maybe Aragon's kind of vision for everything was like, all right, let's just make this a total equal thing, and then if anything bad happens, then we have more Dragon Riders. If you think about it, from varied different races that would be able to collectively deal with this instead of just the elves or just the humans or whatever, you know.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me, and I really do like the end game here. It just does seem like you can't switch off like a switch hundreds of years of casual dogmatic cultural violence.
Yeah. Like it's like part of their like
Yeah,
whole
they're
like
like
upward mobility is like murdering people. Yeah, I see what you're
totally.
saying.
They're like,
Yeah.
now we sing kumbaya and we're men. Like, okay, no.
Yeah, and I think, but I think that's what that whole party thing was for. I think even Aragon at one point thinks to himself like, "Oh yeah, I had just been seeing the soldiers and stuff. There's like a whole community here. There's like Urgle babies that even really kind of look like humans actually, with their like with the exception of like their little horns and stuff. And there's
Right,
like
right.
Urgle women and the Urgle old people and stuff. And oh yeah, this is like a whole thing, you know.
I don't think there's
Uh,
very many old people. They would
maybe not.
probably get killed by the young rams.
Yeah, they're like a Spartan society,
Very
you know.
smart. Yeah, I would have been thrown off the cliff in the Spartan because I'm left-handed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you need to be right-handed in order to like maintain the shield wall.
I wonder how historically accurate that is.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they were pretty darn good fighters, and like I'm pretty good with my right hand also. So like I feel like
You
I
could
could.
hold the shield with your right hand
Yeah, like I train
or
in
left hand or
stick
whatever.
and knife, and I have to train in order to do the exercises that we do. I have to use my right hand, or else they just don't work. Tell me what you think the book's title means.
Inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works with a few different characters, right? So like Arya inherits the throne from her mom. She inherits a dragon egg, so that could be inheritance. I mean, even the cover is Fëanor. What's his name? The
Fernan, I think.
Fernan.
Fearin.
The cover is Fernan. So there could be Arya's inheritance to that dragon egg to being a queen. Inherit Aragon's hypothetical inheritance of Galbatorix's reign at some point, which I think is like loosely offered to Eragon. It could be Murtagh's um, like birthright as Morzan's son. So I think that that's probably what that alludes to. And then I feel like Brissinger is obviously the name of Eragon's sword, which makes sense. It's also fire. So yeah, for the third book, makes sense. That's when Eragon forges the sword. And then for book two, eldest, I think that means Murtagh is Eragon's elder brother, right?
Oh, and
Like,
like respect your elders. Like Oromis is still alive,
oh,
and
maybe,
training
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
maybe,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Or Oramis could be considered the eldest of the writers or
yeah.
whatever. And then Aragon, obviously, it's pretty clear cut.
Totally.
That's about
And
Aragon.
more, I think you nailed it. A hammer on the head of the nail. And I think to finish your statement, the inheritance cycle more broadly is referencing the tendency for the evilness and the problems of our fathers to kind of be for history to repeat itself in the negative, and it's up to us to take our inheritance and make it better, to stop the cycle.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think that this is just one cycle. This is one turning of the wheel of time, if you will. Sorry. But yeah, like the idea that, this has happened before, it'll probably happen again. Like learn from history, try not to to try to get in the way of it repeating itself in any sort of like negative way, which I think happens in this. I mean, there's so much talk of like how things were and how things used to be and the way that things could be,
Right, the good
um,
old days.
and the bad days,
Right.
like the days where Galbatorix was just murdering dragon riders left and right.
Okay, here's some fun lore for you that I just loved. That Vrail was one of the final dragon riders and one of the most powerful ones when Galbatorix was killing them all. And it was rumored that he was the only one who had enough strength to defeat Galbatorix. But as the injured Vrail attempted to fight, Galbatorix kicked him in the fork of his legs before decapitating all the power, all the dragons, all the magic, and the dragon riders are still brought down by a swift blow to the nuts, which
Yep.
is a great thing to keep in mind if you're ever in a self-defense situation.
Yeah, that'll usually do it. That'll
Yep,
usually do it. No
totally.
shame. No shame
Brought
either.
down a dragon rider,
If you feel
bring
like
down a
you're in
mugger.
danger, you go for it. You
Fake to the
like,
eye, kick to the nuts.
yep, yep. That's your surefire way.
Yeah. And as you're running away giggling, it brought down the largest, most powerful group of dragon riders ever, and it allowed you to free yourself from that situation.
One other cool part that I really enjoyed was Islandari and Roran fighting Barst, the head general. I
Oh
thought
yeah,
that was nice and epic, and it was a really cool balance between what was going on, and I was just gonna call it like the throne room, like what was going on in the throne room and the like Urabane, like the stronghold and stuff, and
mm-hmm.
then kind of like panning back to stuff outside. It was really cool to see kind of like almost Roran's like equal, I guess you could say, in like rank or whatever. Yeah, I thought that was just like a really well executed battle, really
Yeah,
exciting. It didn't feel like super drawn out, but it was really long. But I was happy with how long it was. It was cool.
totally. And it was good to throw a little bit of loss in there, in that while one group is away saving and rescuing and gaining, another group is losing. And that kind of sometimes, in order to overcome evil and get good, you have to sacrifice. You have to lose some things,
Honestly, I
which
thought
was
more
nice.
people were gonna die. Like
Me
I'm
too.
not saying I'm like I'm not upset that some characters didn't that some characters didn't die. Like it's fine. But
Right.
also it was just like I feel like one of the things that
Who
I
would you
don't
have killed if you wrote the book? Sorry,
Auric
you go. You go.
definitely like
Yeah,
um
Arya. I think I would have killed Arya.
probably
Yeah,
Arya. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Me too.
probably Arya. Probably Roran. I probably would have killed Roran.
Ooh,
Um
wow.
not Murtagh. I wouldn't have killed Murtagh, but I probably would have killed Roran.
Might have killed Murtagh's dragon.
Nah, no. Oh my god, I love that part where Murtagh's dragon is just like, "Thank you for not killing my rider, Eragon." Like
Yeah.
that was awesome. Appreciate you, bro. That
Yeah,
was
seriously.
but yeah, like so one thing about this as we kind of like close out towards the end of this series, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of chaos. Um there's a lot
A
of
lot of healing.
peril. There's a lot of peril. And but is there though? You know what I mean? Like that's like the thing that it's like I feel like when Roran is in Aros, I was never really worried about him. You know, I'm not really worried about anybody. Like it's
No.
just I never really felt through this entire series like anybody was in any actual real danger, and I was right. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Even
Like
when Murtagh
nobody.
was rumored to be dead, I was like, he's not dead.
Oh
He's
yeah, I guess
fine.
that was the one character where I was like, oh wow, they killed Murtagh off because like
I
his
never
clothes.
believed for a
I know,
second
but
he
like
was
it's I
dead.
really for some reason like that one fooled me because I was like, oh his I mean his clothes are like next to like this giant hole, like
Who takes the clothes off a
I don't
corpse?
know, but I just thought he was dead. So yeah, I was definitely really surprised. But yeah, for all of Brissinger and all of Inheritance, like there's so many battles, there's so many fight scenes, there's so much of this stuff, and like not once was I like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like they're gonna make it
Right.
through just fine, you know.
Not even
Like
like Angela, a side character, which would have been kind of cool if she managed. Who also had a magic blade, the sharpest ever built. Like, okay, everyone has magic swords.
I know
Okay,
what
so
was up with that spear at the beginning where like it's like they were sieging like that one city in like the beginning of the book and they're like fighting, they're fighting. And then like this guy comes out with this big spear and then like this and they're all just like, "Oh my God, it's one of those."
it's
And
the
it's
blah,
like
blah, blah
yeah,
spear.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, "Wait, what? What the hell is
Like
this?"
spears almost died a bunch of times from regular weapons. Like,
I
why do
don't
we need
know.
the crazy? Okay, so as we wrap here, I want to hear what you think about the prop. What two things? One, what do you think is going to happen in Murtagh? What do you think the direction the story is going to take? And then talk to me a little bit about the prophecy that Eragon will never come back to Alagaësia, or will he? And why is
Sure,
that even a
yeah.
thing?
So I think Murtagh is going to be about Murtagh just doing his thing. Obviously, it's going to take place a little bit after these events, and I think that he'll have some sort of intention to go do something, but it might get interrupted with something he has to do regarding the Dragon Riders. He's going to get pulled back in. So
Okay,
that's what I think Murtagh is going to be,
I think you're right.
and I think that what would be interesting is if he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah,
That would be really cool to see him kind of deal with that for sure. Because Murtagh's a really conflicted character, and seeing an entire book from Murtagh's perspective is going to be cool. Like because
really
he's
cool.
easily one of the most interesting characters in this whole series. So, yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
And he has the capacity for like deceit and a little bit more of a like
got an edge to him.
he's got an edge to him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Yeah, he's just he's very interesting.
and then Aragon is gonna come back to Alagaësia.
For sure.
It would be funny if he came back as like a ghost or
It's like,
something.
okay, Angela,
Like
you suck at prophesying. Let me just say this.
yeah, he did not have that epic romance in this book.
Yeah, he's not going to leave Alagaësia forever. Like, what is he part
So
of this?
again, I
Human
can
crystal?
totally see why people that read this were annoyed because it was basically promised in the text. Like, yeah, I
Totally.
totally 100% get behind you. But I still stand by what I said about Aragon
Yeah.
and Arya.
And
But what do you?
you made a good point.
Yeah. But what do you think is going to happen in the next few books?
Okay, I think, and this time I will actually be annoyed if Murtagh does not end at least the next series of books. I don't know if it's a one standalone, one and done sort of thing, but the next series of books, he better end with Nasuada as his boo. That's
I
gonna
think that'll
happen.
happen. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not
But I
really
think that
worried
you're
about that.
right in that he's going to be like conflicted, living in a cave, just like trying to, better himself. And then he's going to be like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. And then that's going to be waylaid somehow. Aragon's going to have need of him and he's going to be walking
Or
by like a pool
somebody
of
is going
water and
to.
he's going
Yeah.
to scry or
Yeah.
something. And he's going to be like, I need you. And then, yeah, he's going to have to come back. And I hope most of the tale takes place outside of Alagaësia and
Yeah.
it's
That'd be
not
interesting.
so focused around. Like we have some of the old characters, but I hope we get a lot of new ones.
Yeah. I think we will. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how would you rank these books from your least favorite to your favorite?
Oh, least favorite, Bersinger.
Brissinger's your least favorite? Okay, yeah.
Totally. Yep. And then the second one. Wait. Inheritance is the third. Bersinger is the third, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the second one,
Eldest. Okay. Yeah.
eldest, and then inheritance, and then Eragon. With
I
a
th-
with kind of a conflicting maybe. The Eragon and inheritance are both. I like Eragon
yeah.
probably from nostalgia. Nostalgia's weighing a lot on my Eragon being my first.
Yeah, I would say Brissinger is my least favorite. I think I would put Aragon under Eldest, honestly, which is
Oh,
funny
really?
because I didn't really like Eldest that much right when I finished it, but then I kind of like thought about it some more and like compared it to these other books and stuff, and like I kind of have a soft spot in my heart in there because like Eldest starts with a bang. There's some really
It
good
really
stuff in there,
does. The
and then
Hellgrind thing.
yeah, and then like Aragon being in Elis Mira, while kind of boring, is also kind of charming too. And there's like some, and then like the very end of Eldest is really good.
Really cool
I liked it a
Murtagh
lot.
rising.
So I think I'm gonna put Aragon, yeah, like right above Brissinger, and then Eldest, and then Inheritance. The last one
Okay.
is my favorite. Yeah.
You, you know, it's kind of funny. I just thought of when Eragon sent Roran, Katrina, and Saphira away after rescuing Katrina. One of the justifications was, I need to go look. Maybe the Razak have eggs or something. I need to go make sure that their race is gone. And then, like, him being like chained up with Arya next to these like
Oh
about
my
to
God, I
hatch
forgot about that
Razak
part.
eggs, like about to
Yeah.
be eaten. She's like, nice work killing the rest of the Razak.
I really liked that part actually.
Me
That was
too.
a really suspenseful, really cool part. That was the
And how
closest I
horrific.
felt like that Arya was gonna die, but it was like too early on in the book. But that was like probably one time out of this whole book where I was like, "Whoa, this is getting a little hairy,
Can
you
you
guys! Like, how is
imagine
this
just
gonna?" Yeah,
reading about Eragon, like watching her being eaten alive by the Razak chained to the
yeah,
wall? Like,
that was
whoa!
yeah. And then Angela comes in and saves the day.
Right,
Um,
magic blade.
It's funny until the werecats were kind of like introduced in mass. I'd pictured Solenbaum as like an actual cat,
Oh, me too.
like a house cat.
Same, like a
Um,
big one.
no, like a normal sized one.
Oh, he was like the
Yeah.
size of like a little dog
Oh, see, like
in
I
my
didn't
mind.
really see like I thought he was like just like a magical house cat. You know what I mean? So that's what I had always seen in my head, and then the way that they're described and the way that like Solenbaum like transforms into like a kid.
Like a
You
little
know,
boy, yeah.
yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's way cooler than like the talking house cat thing. Like, I mean, that would
Right.
have been cool in and of itself, but the werecat thing was a pretty cool idea for sure. But yeah, damn, I forgot about that whole situation with Aragon and Arya being like hung by their toes or whatever. They weren't hung by their toes, but
Yeah.
yeah, and like those crazy religious zealots are in there, and like they're just like, "Oh, you're so lucky to be sacrificed to our god," and I was like, "This is awesome! Like this is why this book is definitely cooler." You know,
Yup.
like I feel like
Totally.
this is the most, in my opinion, like original of the three of the four. Maybe not in like in like if you look at it as like a whole, especially like kind of some of the parts of the ending and stuff. But I feel like the individual things that happen are definitely pretty original. You know,
Hmm.
like Aragon.
Especially right at the end, man. He was setting up to be just kind of real tropey and do exactly what we thought, and then he was just like turned.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess subverting expectations is cool, but
I'm really excited. Oh, go
not if
ahead.
it doesn't make sense though. Like
Yeah,
subverting expectations when it makes sense is awesome, but
right. But for the sole sake of just subverting and being like, haha, you couldn't predict me. But as I said before, and I'll say again, I think a lot of my complaints are kind of padded by the realization that the story is going to continue. And I think that Christopher Paolini has grown a lot as a person and as a writer. And he even told us in the interview that he's writing Murtagh more towards an adult audience. So I think we're going to get a little
yeah,
bit
it's
more like
interesting.
seeing the death blow. You know, it's going to be a little more mature, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely gonna buy it when it comes out, and probably buy. I don't know. I'm like kind of like I said, I'm like kind of bummed out that I'm not reading these anymore. I kind of liked being
Yeah.
able to like mentally poke fun at them sometimes, and I like
Oh, for
being able
sure.
to um like kind of like be along for the ride. Like some of the things that happen in this series that weren't really that I wasn't really expecting were like really cool to read about. You know, like Brom being Aragon's dad. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's like a little bit whatever, but
Right.
also it's like, it's kind of cool, you know?
Unexpectedly
Like,
expected. It is kind of cool. And there was
yeah,
some deeper themes in this book that is, how do I say this? There's more than meets the eye to this story. You can make fun of it a lot, and if you're an author, please don't write a perfect book so Evan and I can still have things to talk about during our podcast episodes. But there's really a lot more than meets the eye here. There's, I think, there's more going on in this story and in the mind of Christopher Paolini than just like putting together a boy defeating evil with his dragon. It's like, no, there's some actual lessons to be learned, which is nice.
yeah, it's tackling a lot of things here. I think that in summation, I would say. this series is really good for people that are just getting into the fantasy genre. Absolutely. I would super recommend this to people that have never read fantasy before. I would also say that it's pretty bloated. Like it
Yeah,
feels like it could have been 3 books. I don't
should have
think it
been.
needed to be 4 books. I think that a lot of things could have been edited out, and I think that there's a lot of things that happen that don't really go anywhere. There's whole events that don't really change anything. There's nothing that
Right.
people
Don't
need to
advance the
react
story.
to or advance the story or anything like that. And I mean, like, there's the great debate of whether or not that's even an issue. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big Stephen King fan, and you could probably edit all kinds of stuff out of his books.
Right. Our favorite
But
parts of Harry Potter, we've said time and time
right,
again, is them in
exactly.
class.
So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to I feel like with this kind of story, for me personally, I want a lot of the fat cut off of it.
Hmm.
That's just for me, just like important event after important event after important event. When you're doing this kind of like save the world questing, getting
Epic high
armies
stakes
together,
fantasy.
yeah, like epic high stakes fantasy. You do need to have reasons for why people are trying. You got to give people something to save, right?
Right.
And I think that
I need to care.
yeah, so those kind of like lapses in action are necessary. But I felt like there were just too many of them. There were just too
Yeah.
many, like you said, like kneading dough, like kind
Yeah.
of scenes or weird side quests. Like Aragon saving Sloane.
Weird side quest.
Yeah, like
I love
Aragon
that.
staying behind and saving Sloane was such a
Such a
drag part
weird
of
side quest.
Brissinger. And then at the end of this book, he like gives Sloane his eyes back, but then it's still like you still can't talk to her. And it's like, wait, why, dude? Like, what's the like?
Right.
Haven't you punished this guy
Right.
enough? Like,
Also, like so
holy
much for like
shit.
no one should be police. Seems like you're pretty policey, my guy.
Yeah, Aragon's a cop. Like,
He's Jesus though, man. He's giving people their
yeah.
eyesight back, breaking spells that took like all of the elves and dragons. He's like, no, I got this by myself.
I'll just take care of this. Yeah, I thought that was pretty weird. I think that was like one of my least favorite parts of the whole book was when because I thought Aragon was just gonna be like, you know what? I feel like I've punished you enough. Like, go be with your daughter, you know.
Right.
But then he like it almost makes it worse because then he's like, all
It's kind
right,
of
so
petty.
I'm gonna make it so you can actually see what you can't go interact with. Like,
Right.
I mean, damn, man, like what the hell? Like this is supposed to be a hero character,
Right.
not like okay, so you've been good, so now I'm gonna do this, but you'll never see me again, Sloan. So
Right. It's like,
have
is
fun
it
with
better
that.
to love and lose as or just never have loved? Well, it's like in Sloane's case, like never have loved. That's the better situation
Yeah,
for
like it
him.
would have been more merciful to just like make him forget that he even had a daughter or something like that. And obviously Aragon can do this kind of stuff because Aragon can do anything. And like
Anything.
that's another thing that made it so that I felt like the stakes were never really that raised in this series is because pretty much whenever there's an issue, Aragon can tackle it with magic. You know,
Right.
like as if there's any like he's worried about Roran, set a bunch of wards on Roran, and like make it so that the magic that Roran uses, you just gotta like refill it like a gas tank every now and then or whatever. Who gives a
Right.
shit? You know what I mean? Like we just do whatever, and what pretty much any issue that Aragon is faced with, he can tackle it with magic.
Yeah. Well, as Aragon is wrapping up, I think Aragon is time to be era finished and
Yeah,
tell Murtagh.
yeah. I had a little bit of a hangover here.
Yeah.
Some pretty cool parts of all of this. Took us a little while to get through them. These are some doorstopper books.
They're
Um,
huge.
yeah, I think there's some stuff to dig into here. We were able to make over 4 hours of content off of these books pretty easily. I mean, like this
Yep.
is not hard to do. It's not hard to talk about these books.
Some as sad as it is to see these go, we have so many great books on our plate. So I guess the only way to get over a book is to get under another one. So let's go do that.
Yeah, for everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us on our inheritance journey. It's had its ups and downs, it's had its rounds and rounds, but it's been a good time. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly. I've enjoyed myself even more being able to talk with you about this series, Chad.
Same.
It's been a blast. And so for everybody listening, if you want to join us for our next read, we'll be doing Sword of Kaigen in the Patreon book club that we have. After that, we'll be doing The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. And then on the regular podcast, we'll be doing The Dreamblood duology by N.K. Jemisin. The first book is called The Killing Moon, and you should look out for an episode on that in like maybe like probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. We need
Yeah.
to focus on Sword of Kaigen and The Expanse, which we're on book 4 of that right now. So we have a lot going on. Oof.
Yep. But as always, it is an honor and such a boost and elevation of the value I get from reading to have all of you wonderful listeners along for the ride and to discuss it with you, my best buddy, Evan, my man, my guy.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us here today for Book Reviews Kill and for Inheritance. We're saying goodbye to all these characters, this whole story, and we'll see you next time with our next recap and discussions series that we do. I hope all of you have an awesome rest of your day, and of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.